This is James Holder for IFL TV in association with Macklin Jim Marbella. With me, I've got probably two of the most prominent men in the country at the moment, the managing editor of Boxing News and the main man from Boxing Scene. So this is quite a first, quite a diverse boxing knowledge here in front of me at the moment. How are we, fellas?
Pretty good. Good show.
Good.
Tired.
In terms of numbers, in terms of 1 to 10, how would you score today's show?
The whole show, I would probably give it a 7, a good 7. I thought the main event was a good fight. I didn't think it was a classic fight. I thought the scores were a bit off.
In terms of you thought it was a bit wide? Or you
I thought it was a bit wide. Yeah. But the right man won.
Rick, if I can ask you the same question, how did you find the event today? And did you think it lived up to expectations?
Yes and no. I mean, I thought there could have been a little bit more action. I thought it was, I agree that it wasn't as wide of a fight. It was probably an 8-4 fight, in Canelo's favor. I thought Canelo did very well. He looked really good. I thought Miguel also looked really good, but I thought the size difference was just too much for him. I mean, it looked, when they got in the ring, it was like a junior middleweight fighting a full-blown middleweight, maybe even a super middleweight.
And the thing is, Canelo can still make 154. That's a scary thought in itself. What do you think his best weight is now, 154 or 160?
Well, we haven't seen him make 154 in 4 fights, so I'm not positive on how easy he can make 154. He says he can, but he elects to fight at 155. I think he is a legitimate middleweight, and they're just staying right in the middle for as long as they can before moving up.
Matt, if I can ask you, what did you think of his comments that he would lace up the gloves and fight GGG tonight if it meant the fans were happy? What sort of an adrenaline-fueled comment, or do you think that's something he genuinely believes?
I don't think for 1 second he'd get in the ring with GGG now, but I do believe that that's the fight that he wants. But I think the crucial thing is, I wasn't remotely convinced that that's what his promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, wants. He's still very much kind of he's their jewel, isn't he, Alvarez? And a fight against Golovkin is a very, very risky one, and I think De La Hoya knows that.
Second, if you like, super fight for SAUL Canelo Alvarez. Mayweather pay-per-view was probably his biggest one. The James Kirkland one, although it done good numbers, decent numbers, I wouldn't call it necessarily a super fight. This one probably his second time on the biggest stage. How do you feel he coped with that pressure, and do you feel he delivered value for money?
Yeah, I do. I feel like he did deliver value for money. I think we've seen big improvements in Alvarez. What's always impressed me the most about him is his mindset, his positive thinking, the faith he's got in himself. And that, when you've got that level of faith in yourself, particularly after he was, let's face it, taken to school by Floyd Mayweather, is a very, very, very strong quality going forward. And I think we'll see Alvarez continue to improve. He's only 25 years old.
We've got Andy Lee defending against Billy Joe Saunders. That fight's already been made. I mean, there's been talk of Gennady Golovkin facing the winner of that fight. Potentially, if it is Andy Lee, then it'd probably be easier to make. Can sort of Andy Lee get in the mix with Canelo? Is that viable now with the sort of the structure of the way the middleweight division is?
I mean, it's viable. I think there's a long way to go before we'd see that fight, and I think Andy Lee has proved that he's one of the world's best middleweights. Would the world want to see that fight though? Would that be? I think what everyone now wants to see is Alvarez Golovkin, and if anything else comes before that, we're going to be a little bit disappointed.
Oscar De La Hoya seemed under a little bit of pressure when the press asked him that that's the fight that we want to see. That's the fans' fight of choice, if you like, of preference. But he seemed to sort of want to please us as much as anyone else and sort of say, yes, the fight will happen. But do you think that's a genuine answer or more of a reactive response, if you like?
I think it's a reactive response. Canelo is the much bigger star. I mean, when you can do over 300,000 pay-per-view buys against Erislandy Lara, I mean, Golovkin has to bend. He's not going to fight Golovkin at 160. Golovkin needs him a lot more than Canelo needs Golovkin. I mean, Canelo could fight anybody and probably do a better number on pay-per-view than Golovkin did with Lemieux. and Canelo has a lot more options. He could, they could lure Tim Bradley up, a couple of guys from 47. He could fight guys from 54. He could make a few guys. I'm sure Andy Lee for a few million would squeeze down to 56 or 55, if Andy Lee wins. And I know Frank Warren has told me that, if Billy Joe wins that fight and he's a live dog, he could very well win. He'll absolutely match him immediately against Canelo or Cotto, but Golovkin, that's another story. He said at least a year, 18 months away from that fight.
Where does Miguel Cotto go from here? I mean, he looked good tonight. His movement looked very good. His work ethic was very good. His mentality to win looked very good. He just seemed to be outclassed by Canelo today, and I didn't have it as wide as some of the judges did. But that said, where does he go from here? Do you think he has got a viable future challenging at the elite level, if you like?
He showed that he's still got a lot left, but I think for someone like Miguel Cotto, who has been an elite fighter for so long, he may find it hard to kind of get up for fights again, and he has had a long career. And to be quite honest, after the Austin Trout defeat, I thought it was over for him, and he proved us wrong to an extent. And I don't want to take anything away from the wins against the likes of Martinez, but none of those guys he's beaten in his last 3 fights, let's be honest, were in what you would call peak condition. I think so. Where Cotto goes from here, I think he's got a massive fan base. People want to see him fight. Will he be doing himself justice if he continues? That's the question he's got to ask himself, and I'm sure he will be.
Okay, well listen, on that note, last but not least, I just want to touch a little bit on Rigondeaux. Very disappointing in terms of the response he had today. We was all probably expecting him to set this alight, being his first fight on the BoxNation banner, but with 10 days notice and sort of, I don't know, with not having a come forward opponent maybe as he would have liked, do you think that made his job a little bit harder than what we may have anticipated?
No, I think Rigondeaux, really disappointed me because there was, he had a kind of a fan movement. A lot of fans were disappointed with the way he was treated, and he said he was going to come in here and make a statement. And Rock Nation put their faith behind him. A lot of other promoters didn't want to deal with him just for the simple reason of the type of fight we saw tonight. And I think the difference between what him and Lomachenko is, when Lomachenko has an opponent that he's outclassed, he goes for blood. He just goes for the knockout and stops the guy. Where Rigondeaux, if he's outclassing an opponent, if he could just outclass him, make him look like a fool round after round to a decision, he's content to do that. But it's not the most eye-appealing fight, and you heard the reaction of the crowd tonight.
I mean, his style in Europe and in England, where we're from, seems to be more sort of respected than it seems to be in the States. Would that be maybe a choice of Rock Nation, maybe to try and build him in Europe a little bit if it's not working out here?
Well, I think that I would be interested to see what they think now, because I think as early as the first round tonight there was boos, and those boos just
intense boos,
and it just increased and it increased and increased. You could understand it to an extent from the point of view the fans have paid for tickets, so they can voice their frustration if they're not keen on it. But kind of echoing what Rick said, that Rigondeaux was probably the angriest man in Las Vegas this week, and I really was expecting him to put on a bit of a show. And although you can't really fault him because he didn't lose a round, you just feel that if he'd have gone out there and he'd have blown Francisco away, and that wasn't out of the question, then we wouldn't be having this conversation now.
Are we expecting too much from him though? Is he that kind of fighter? Is he always going to be that defensive mastermind, and we're trying to, I don't know, change him into something he's not, if you like?
He'll always be what he is, and he'll always please himself. But you would have. I was expecting something a little more than that tonight after everything that's happened recently.
Would you think the other super bantamweights would have been looking at this, the likes of Carl Frampton, the likes of Scott Quigg, and thinking maybe we fancy the job with Rigondeaux?
Yeah, I mean there wasn't much there tonight from Rigondeaux to put the fear of God into Frampton and Quigg, to be honest with you. And I would say both of them, if they're honest with themselves, both of them will fancy that fight. It will just be the people around them that won't want it. Both of them will want that fight, and certainly tonight that will just whet their appetite even further.
All right, well listen, I know you two have got like a power meeting of graph charts to look at and whatever else it is you do in your spare time for fun, analytics, working out things and whatever the case may be, but we really do appreciate you coming and talking to IFL TV. It's great to get you both on, and thank you very much for giving me some of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.